How's it going, everybody? Chadley here, and today I'm bringing you the updated Wheel of Pain Amara build. And for me personally, this is my absolute favorite way to play Amara. It can do absolutely everything, and basically the premise of this build is a phase Zerker ties that bind build, and this is focused around creating as many projectiles and ricochets as possible. And one of our main weapons for that is the wagon wheel, hence where the name Wheel of Pain came from. And with the recent updates to the game, there's so many things we can do with this build. And also, our main gun, the wagon wheel, also received a buff. All pistols got buffed. Jacobs did receive the least of all the pistol buffs, but it's still substantial. We're almost at 12k damage on this wagon wheel. And then also with next two mags being recently boosted to 100%, this thing absolutely destroys, and this thing is just so much fun. It's better than ever. So obviously this is going to be our first weapon in this build, and like I said, I like to have a next two mags on there. I used to like to have 390, but ever since that thing got nerfed, I haven't really liked it quite as much. It's still a decent option, but not really the best. I like to just have next two mags so we get even more projectiles coming out of this thing. And also, if you guys are not aware about this weapon, aim for crits. You're going to be creating more projectiles, and the closer enemies are to each other, the quicker they are going to die, especially when you're aiming for those crits. This thing's not really a single target weapon. It can do okay damage in single target scenarios, but definitely use this when there's high density enemies and they're really close to each other. Then they'll basically instantly die, and it's fantastic. And then one of the new weapons is the proprietary license. This thing just destroys. It ricochets everywhere. It creates stickies, and overall is just really, really good with ties that bind. And this version that I have is fire with bonus incendiary. So this one is definitely pretty darn good. It's going to create more ricochets with the next two mags anointment on there. A consecutive hits version is definitely another really strong option, but you guys can take your pick. Obviously just have a mix of elements ready to change out when you're doing different activities. And then the hyper focus is still incredibly strong with this build, with infusion and forceful expression, along with all of our bonus elements. There's going to be so many extra projectiles coming in from the side when you're hitting enemies with this weapon. And I also have the shock version with 100% bonus radiation, so for shielded enemies, this thing destroys. Like the Guardian takedown, if there is a Guardian with just shields, you're going to tear through it even without having them in ties that bind. It is amazing to have one of these. And then finally, probably the strongest weapon on this build right now, and I'm sure you guys have probably used this already, is the new complex root from DLC 3. This thing just creates so many of those zigzag ricochets and stuff, and then when combined with indiscriminate, you are going to just destroy everything from bossing to huge heavy mobbing sections. This is what you'll pull out. It's definitely the best bet, and I highly recommend getting your hands on one. Normally, I will rock this one with 100 bonus corrosive, and it has cryo and corrosive. Ideally, I would replace that cryo with shock, and then we'd be good to go. Or even the best case scenario is have a shock and corrosive with 200 splash on there. That is definitely like the best version you can have. I just haven't gotten one yet, but this thing is so good, you don't need a perfect roll on it. And then still, we're going to be using a transformer. It's going to give us that survivability, and also that absorb chance is huge. Then obviously you guys are going to want a bonus element on there. I have a couple different versions just for whatever scenarios. And then for the grenade, I still like to use its piss. That 20% damage boost to the enemies you affect by it is huge, and the best part is I'm still using a level 50. It does not matter what level the thing is, it's still going to be 20% regardless. So if you guys don't really want to farm a new grenade, you don't have to. If you guys want to use a damaging grenade, you're more than welcome to. I just like to have that bonus damage, especially because it gets spread out through ties that bind. If you hit the enemy that is grasped, its piss effect will go to everybody tied. And then for our phase Zerker class mod, I happen to get this one with action skill damage and pistol damage, which is absolutely perfect for our build. This thing is huge. The skills on a phase Zerker really don't matter all that much. Completely up to you with how the skills are. I would just mainly go for good passives. And then we're obviously going to be using the Pearl, best artifact in the game and always the one to go to. If you guys don't have the DLC or this Pearl, I highly recommend just trading for it, and if not, just use like a Snowdrift Victory Rush and you guys will be good to go. Now, if you guys want to trade out any of these weapons, some other good options are the Beacon. This thing shreds. And then if you guys can get your hands on a 390 Moonfire, this thing does so much damage. I made a video on this about a month ago, talking about how well this thing works in Mayhem 10. But then also I specifically combined it with Ties That Bind, and you guys can hit max damage very, very often using this 390 anointment. The Flipper is a pretty decent option. It's not really the best, so I don't use it all that often, but I do like to just have one. Monarchs are always going to be good, and then I like to just have some more elements of roots for whatever scenarios. But basically anything that is going to be getting more projectiles based off of your bonus elements is very good options for this build. But now that we've gone through the gear, let's go ahead and jump over to the skill tree. This is basically exactly the same as our last iteration of this build. We're going with max action skill damage, and all we've done to change it is add the 3 extra skill points we've gotten with the level 60 level cap increase. So we're going to go max do harm, 3 points into fast hands, 1 point into violent tapestry, 3 points into alacrity for that insane reload, 3 points into transcend for that critical hit damage. And then we're going to skip Restless. The cooldown for Ties That Bind is super short anyways, so this skill really doesn't have that big of an effect. It's only like a couple seconds at 5 out of 5, so I really like to skip this for Ties That Bind. And then that's going to allow us to get From Rest, so when you guys are using that complex route, you basically don't have to wait for it to charge, or if you guys are using like the Beacon, Hellshock, things like that, any Malawan charging weapons, this thing works great with. And also just in general, that 12% fire rate boost is pretty huge for other weapons. And then we're going to do 3 points into Laid Bare for that bonus damage, 3 points into Wrath, 3 points into Awakening so we can boost our rush stack stuff, 1 point into Remnant just for that overkill orb. The thing still hits super hard, especially when using Ties That Bind. And then 1 point into Avatar so we can get the bonus rush stacks and cast our ability twice. And then our augment is going to be Soul Sap so we don't make our cooldown longer, and we also don't lose out on any action skill damage, and we also get more healing for when we have the wagon wheel out. And then moving on to our orange tree, we're just going to go 5 points into Anima, 3 points into Steady Hands, 1 point into Infusion. This is going to allow us to heal with the wagon wheel and get more projectiles without sacrificing damage on element matching weapons, like saying using the root on Wotan or something like that. 5 points into Tempest for the bonus elemental damage and even more to Shock, 1 point into Dread, and then 3 points into Indiscriminate, 1 point into Deep Well, and then 1 point into Catharsis. This skill really doesn't do damage, it's just enough to heal you when it procs when you have like the wagon wheel out, because that was like the biggest issue with the wagon wheel, was just getting the healing, because it's obviously not an elemental weapon. So we just like to have as many sources as we can. And then we're going to go 5 points into Sustainment. Now, I know this is a little overkill on sustainment right now with Mayhem 10 damage, but using the wagon wheel with only 1 point into infusion, this is just really nice to have so we can guarantee that we have a ton of survivability when we have the wagon wheel out. And also it just guarantees you get up to full health and basically a shot with any of the other weapons. And then finally 1 point into Forceful Expression for that bonus elemental damage, and this is also going to be creating more projectiles for us. And then our final 3 points are going to go into Personal Space. Like always, this is one of Amara's strongest skills. It does way more than this 36% bonus damage when you're really close to the enemies. The 36% is still like in effect at like 15 to 20 feet, somewhere around there. And then normally I will rock just Shock as our action skill element. Right now I had Fire on. I'm going to take that off for the moment, but Shock is normally what I will run. And now that we've gone through the skills, let's go ahead and move on to our modifiers. I really like Speed Demon. This is probably my favorite easy modifier. And then Healy Avenger is my favorite medium. And then Laserfare and Roguelite is actually a really good combo. So Roguelite got changed to where you cannot get a second wind when you're in Roguelite, even if you kill an enemy. Before you were able to, but they changed it so you cannot. But for some reason that does not apply to Laserfare. If you kill the Laserfare little spinner, you're going to get a second wind while in Roguelite. And then when you guys are using the complex route, it is going to chain to the Laserfares. So it is incredibly easy to get second winds if you happen to go down. So I think these two are a really, really good combo. because roguelite doesn't affect any sort of damaging output by you. It just makes it a little bit harder to survive in case you go down. If you guys are really against roguelite, I would just use post-mortem and deal with the death skulls. So like always, we are here in a true Malawan takedown, and right here you can see the power of the wagon wheel. Just a couple shots we can basically kill them, and a lot of times you can just shoot once at the crit spot of the enemy you grasp and they will die. And right here you can even see kind of the power of the wagon wheel. Even without ties that bind, as long as there's just enemies close by, you're going to be doing pretty darn decent damage. Right here again, you can see the damage without ties that bind. This is why I really do enjoy it, and is probably my favorite pistol in the game right now. So now we are on to the license. This thing is insane. It creates so many projectiles and it just shreds through enemies, and the best part is it's always going to be elemental, so you're going to get tons of healing and have great survivability while having really good crowd control with this weapon. So if there are parts where like somehow the wagon wheel cannot keep up in terms of healing, pull this thing out and you guys will be good to go. Just have the elements you need for that scenario. And then I have this hyper focus just for shield enemies. Now it's obviously not going to work too great on the armored portion of that enemy, but any of these shield guys you're going to just tear through, especially when there's enemies nearby and you get indiscriminate going. Speaking of indiscriminate, I forgot to mention one of the reasons this skill is so amazing is that it actually counts as action skill damage. Now, we've been using this for a long time, and I've known indiscriminate is really strong, but never known why. Lazy Data actually figured out that indiscriminate counts as action skill damage, so that is boosted by do harm and awakening. So everything that is boosting our action skill damage is going to boost the damage that indiscriminate puts out. So that's why it's super powerful, and shout out to Lazy Data for figuring that out. It answered so many questions that I had on why it was so powerful. But now we are going to pull out the root for the Kraken here, and we're just going to put on the corrosive side, grasp the Kraken, and just shoot in there, and basically it's going to insta-kill everybody in there, and it's seriously amazing. And here is how it does for mobbing. You can see all of the ricochets that it does, and it just chains to everybody when using indiscriminate. And then always if you put them into ties that bind, it's going to just destroy everybody involved. And this gun is so amazing. So now we're on to the Valkyries, and I always like to just pull out the wagon wheel, grasp the middle Valkyrie, shoot once or twice, and they're gonna go immune. A lot of the times you can get them basically all to 0 shield, and it makes your life easier. And here I just like to pull out like the wagon wheel or the root for all of these groups of enemies. Now there's only one guy left in that group, and we also have bonus corrosive on our wagon wheel, so we're not really going to be doing much to this heavy, but it doesn't matter. We have Sigrifta coming down, so we're just going to pull out the root and just kind of shoot a couple shots into there, and they will go immune and also chain to them. And we're probably just going to keep this out for this group of battle wolves to come out, and they're going to be gone. So now we are moving on to the final phase of the Valkyries. I'm just going to finish off this group that is spawning in, and we will finish off the Valkyries. And finishing off the Valkyries is pretty darn easy. You can use basically any weapon, and as long as you ties that bind them, but you can even really easily do it with the wagon wheel. I don't know if Rhoda's gonna come here. They are, so we're just gonna use this, and they're all dead. So that's why I really do enjoy this build. It's super easy and tons of fun to use. So yeah guys, that is going to wrap up our Wheel of Pain Amara update. And so basically tips I have, if you find a section of the game difficult, just pull out the root and you guys will be good to go. And if there's bosses that you can't phase grasp, just switch over to phase cast, and then that way you can get laid bare to proc on them and you guys will be good to go. So like Grave Ward, when I'm farming him, I'll switch over to phase cast and then obviously just use a fire weapon. You guys will have no issues whatsoever. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Make sure you guys are subscribed to see more Borderlands content. We're gonna have a ton of builds coming up, including Flak. I have a ton of ideas for Flak, so definitely stay tuned for those. And then I will see some of you guys over on Twitch. We stream every single night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So hopefully I'll see you over there. If not, have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.